Hi, friends. I've got a really great book for us today to start with. It's called Mary and Her Little Lamb. And right down here it says the true story of the famous nursery rhyme. So we're going to find out the story behind this. Let's read it. It says Mary and Her Little Lamb. Mary had a little lamb. Its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. He followed her to school one day, and that was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school. Mary Elizabeth Sawyer loved animals. Every animal in the barn and farmyard knew her. The horses, the pigs, and the cows all neighed and oink, mooed when she came to visit. But no animals were happier to see her than her sheep. Ooh, look at this picture. That's her farmyard right there. Ooh, wow. So this is the inside of the barn there. There's Mary. That's all of her animals around her. Ooh, wow. So there's Mary and her sheep. And it says, one early morning when she went to the barn with her father, she found two little lambs in the sheep pen. They had been born while she was sleeping. They both were tiny, but one was smaller than the other, and its mother wasn't taking good care of it. The little lamb was all alone and shivering and hungry. When she looked up to Mary with big brown eyes and let out a weak little ah, it just broke Mary's heart. I'll save you, Mary said as she cuddled the little lamb in her arms and carried it back to the farmhouse. So there's the little lamb right there, and there's Mary carrying it back. Ooh, and here's inside the farmhouse. A lamb in the house, said Mary's mother. Oh, Mary. But Mary hugged the little lamb close. Please, she said, please, mother, let me keep her. She's so sick. Mary begged and pleaded until her mother finally said, all right, Mary, but this is your responsibility. Then, with a sigh, she brought the little lamb some of her special tea. Mary's mother wanted the lamb to get better too. Mary wrapped the lamb in an old linen dress and held her close, feeding her drops of tea all through the dreary March day, worrying all the while. Finally, around supper time, the little lamb began to swallow the warm milk Mary's father had brought in from the barn, and soon enough her eyes brightened. Oh, little lamb, Mary said, maybe you will live after all. But deep down, Mary still wondered. The lamb was still so small and weak. Mary spent the cold night in front of the fireplace with her little lamb, snuggling with her and keeping her warm. She wasn't sure if the lamb would make it until morning, but when Mary woke up, she was happy to see the lamb not only doing well, but standing on her own sturdy little legs. In no time at all, the lamb was following Mary everywhere that she went, down the lane, over the meadow, across the falls, and even into town. What a dear little lamb you are, Mary said as they ran together down the road. There's them running together. Mary wished her little lamb, and combed out the burrs and tied pretty ribbons in her wool. The lamb loved Mary too. She would close her eyes and hang her head for Mary so she could brush the lamb's woolly locks. Once the lamb was well, Mary put her in the little pen with the other sheep, but she wouldn't stay. Instead, the little lamb slept in a corner of the woodshed, made especially for her by Mary. And when gazing in the pasture, she preferred the company of horses or cows. What a dear little lamb, Mary giggled when she saw the little lamb playing. So there she is washing her sheep. And here's the next picture right there. On a long summer day, Mary and her little lamb would pick flowers and make daisy chains. Since Mary's friends lived far away, the lamb became her best playmate. Mary would dress up the little lamb and host tea parties in the meadow. The lamb would merrily play along, happy to be with her best friend. Okay, and there's everybody having a picnic. Oh, wow, look at this picture. Aren't the pictures wonderful? There's Mary and her lamb. On the first day of school, just as Mary started down the lane, she remembered that she had not said goodbye to her lamb. Mary called out across the meadow, and sure enough, the snow-white lamb came running. "What a dear lamb you are," said Mary with a wave goodbye. "I'll see you when school lets out." But as Mary continued on, the lamb was close behind. Through the meadow and over the stone walls she followed, even when Mary took the shortcut across the narrow footbridge. Before long, they were at the schoolhouse. With a look over her shoulder, Mary walked through the schoolhouse door. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Oh, there we go. She's at the schoolhouse, and there's her lamb. And the little lamb followed. She trotted right in, bold and proud, just as if she had always belonged there. She pranced over the wooden plank floor, her little black hooves chattering all the way to Mary's desk, where she quickly made herself at home under Mary's seat. Mary tossed a quilt over her little friend to keep her hidden as they settled into the school day. So there's her lamb, and you can see her prancing across the floor right there. Yeah. And on the other side, we see the lamb, and it's covered up in a quilt underneath Mary's desk. When Miss Kimball arrived at the school, she had brought with her a visitor, Mr. John Rulestone. By the time Miss Kimball rang the school bell and began the day's lesson, almost all of the children in the school knew there was a lamb under Mary's desk and were trying hard not to laugh. Soon enough, though, Miss Kimball called on Mary to come to the front of the room to recite the lesson. Mary slowly walked down the aisle, hoping her lamb wouldn't follow. At first, Mary walked alone, but then she heard a click, 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 click over the floorboards behind her. It was her lamb wearing the blanket Mary had thrown on top of her. The students cheered and whistled and laughed, and even Miss Kimball and Mary herself could not help but laugh at the sight of the little lamb who had come to school. Oh, wow. So there's the school right there, and that's the quilt. Yeah, and there's the lamb. Mr. Rulestone was so amused by the spectacle of the lamb in the school that the next morning he returned to the schoolhouse. Calling Mary to him, he handed her a piece of paper upon which he had written. So here's the famous poem, y'all. Let's read it. "Mary had a little lamb, its fleece was white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go. He followed her to school one day, and that was against the rule. It made the children laugh and play to see a lamb at school." And as the sun set later that evening, Mary gathered her family around and recited the poem for everyone to hear. And all the while she waved colored ribbons through the woolly locks of her happy, contented, and now famous little lamb. The end. That was wonderful. It was called Mary and Her Little Lamb. Okay, I've got one other book to look with us today, and it's a very silly book. It's called Animals Should Definitely Not Wear Clothing. And Mary dressed her lamb up in clothes, so this will be kind of fun to read. Animals should definitely not wear clothing. Because it would be disastrous for a porcupine. Because a camel might wear it in the wrong places. So we see the camel there, and he's put the hats on top of his humps there. Because a snake would lose it. So we see a snake trying to wear pants. Because a mouse would get lost in it. So we see a hat right there, and we see the little mouse right there underneath the hat. Yeah, that's cool. Because a sheep might find it terribly hot. So there's the sheep, and she's in a sweater. Because it would be very messy for a pig. So there's a pig, and he's dressed up. Because it might make life hard for a hen. So there's the hen, and she's trying to lay her egg. Because a kangaroo would find it quite unnecessary. So there's the kangaroo, and the kangaroo already has a pouch. Because a giraffe might look sort of silly. So there's the giraffe wearing ties. Because a billy goat would eat it for lunch. Yeah, goats eat everything. Because it would always be wet on a walrus. Because a moose could never manage. It's got his suspenders caught up in his antlers there. Because possums might wear it upside down by mistake. And most of all, because it might be very embarrassing. And we can see right here, the lady and the elephant are wearing the same dress. They said it might be very embarrassing. The end. That was a great book, and it was called Animals Should Definitely Not Wear Clothing. That was fun. I hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend too. And I'll see you again Monday. Bye, friends. Have a good day.